Hello and good evening, Chicago. Welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Sorry that we missed last week. Apparently, I decided to catch a bug over the Super Bowl weekend, and I had no voice to speak with last Monday. But that's okay. We are back. We're going to make up for it this week with a gigantic show. Unfortunately, not in length. It's only going to be an hour long, but we are going to hit every single one of the major teams right now in the city. We are going to talk Bears. We are going to talk Bulls. We are going to talk White Sox, Cubs. Blackhawks are going to make it onto the show for a little bit, and even Northwestern is going to get brought up. And we might even sneak in a little bit of Illinois at the end of there, too. A ton to get through here in the next 58-ish minutes or so. Lots to get through, everybody. Buckle it on up. Let's go. And once again, good evening, everyone. Welcome on in to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Happy to be with you tonight, back at it after an unexpected Monday off. Taryn Rodriguez in the chat room. Glad that I'm feeling better. Last Monday wasn't the same. Yeah, last Monday wasn't the same being here without you guys, too. I missed it. Unfortunately, I was in no shape to do a show. I was passed out with... Fortunately, just some kind of a cold, but it smacked me really good. But glad to be back. A lot to get through here tonight. We're going to be hitting every single one of the major men's professional teams in the city. Bears, Bulls, White Sox, Cubs, Blackhawks. We'll even dive a little bit into the college realms. Lots and lots and lots to get through here tonight. I'm getting myself fully caffeinated as we speak. I encourage you, if you're able, do the same, because this is going to be a crazy one here tonight. Of course, we do have to say thank you to our sponsors on Patreon, Bay Area Raised, MLOS Great, Key to the Gate, and our anonymous supporter. They help make all of this possible. If you want to help support us on Patreon, just go to our website, iesportsradio.com, and you can jump on in there. You find the link to our Patreon page. It starts at just $5 a month. That'll get you a shout out in every single one of our shows. Higher tiers include access to our podcasting university. You also get access to our merchandise, and if you get high enough, you even get to have your very own segment on The Defining Moment with Larry B., the remastered Defining Moment, as we're finding out over the weekend. So stay tuned for that. All right. So I want to start things off with the Bears. And this was the story getting into the weekend, and it amazed me and it drove me nuts. So we've got to start here. First of all, on Thursday, you had Jason La Canfora putting this out there on Twitter. Then it caught fire. You had Dan Patrick talking about it. You had Rich Eisen talking about it. You had both shows on both of their morning talk television shows on ESPN and ESPN2 at the same time, all talking about the same thing. that the Bears are going to be trading Justin Fields. I'm going to try to say this as calmly, as succinctly, and as make myself as understood as I possibly can. In fact, everybody take a second right now, real quick. Turn up the volume, however you're listening, whether it's live right here now on Monday night, or you're listening as a podcast, just stop for a second. Turn up your volume. I promise I'm not going to shout right now. I'll even give you a couple seconds. Go ahead, turn up your volume. It's safe. Got it turned up? Good. Now listen very carefully and very closely. The Chicago Bears are not trading Justin Fields. I'll say this again. Justin Fields is not going to be playing for any other NFL team in 2023 other than the Chicago Bears. I know you all get some wild ideas in your head, and the second the Super Bowl is done, and that was an amazing Super Bowl, by the way. I know the second the Super Bowl is done, we're into the offseason, we're into draft season, and we're into lying season. And Arthur, I heard the Saints are trading for him. No, they are not. They are not trading for him. First of all, Arthur, they don't have enough draft capital. Second of all, they don't have any cap space. I know that we get into the second the Super Bowl is done, we're into lying season. We're into draft season. And because the Bears own the number 1 overall pick, they are the talk of the NFL. And we're not used to this in Chicago. We haven't had the number 1 pick. It's been since World War II that the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. 1947 was the last time. So I get it. And I realize that when in doubt in sports media, you talk NFL. You just talk NFL when in doubt. But come on. I have to address this. And there's basically 3 arguments that come out of it. Whomever you were listening to or watching to or reading, it boiled down to basically 3 arguments. And so I'll attack each one of these 3. And then we got to move on. We got to move on from this. I hope this is the last time I have to bring this up this offseason. I fear that it's not. First argument. Well, Ryan Poles didn't actually draft Justin Fields, so he's not attached to him. Go back to what Ryan Poles said at the end of the regular season press conference when he was asked about Justin Fields. He said Justin has things to work on, but that he showed that he can be the future. He needs to improve as a passer. Yes. Everybody understands that. Everybody knows that. But they're going to be spending time with him in the offseason. Poles said he would have... He got pressed about it so much that he finally tossed everybody a bone, and he said, all right, fine. There is truly no player that is completely untradeable. But he would have to be absolutely blown away by a quarterback to consider moving on from Fields to go with this guy instead. It's the same kind of conversation that he had when he was asked about Matt Eberflus back in the beginning of the season press conference. It was the same kind of conversation, same kind of rhetoric. So that's the first one. Poles maybe didn't draft him, but Poles recognizes the kid as being special. He is aligning himself with Justin Fields. Second option. Second argument here. Well, the Bears need to move on from Justin Fields because they're not ready to win right now, and you then get to reset the quarterback clock. Really? We're talking about a kid that just finished his second season in the NFL. You're worried about control? Control. You must have control. All right, fine. He is currently under contract for 2023 and 2024. They also have a club option for 2025. If that's still not enough, they can franchise tag him at the end of 2025 and have him for the 2026 season. That is 4 more years of team control. All of them are at extremely cost-effective prices, too. The one maybe exception to that would be the final year, in that Fields has a little bit more control over if he gets tagged. He could decide not to sign it, and that number would almost certainly be the biggest cash number, cap number that they'd have to be paying him. But the salary, this is the NFL. The salary cap goes up every year. It took a global pandemic to cause the NFL's salary cap to drop. There is no reason to think that the Bears right now, who are the most cash-free team in the entire league, there's no reason to think right now that they couldn't afford him for 4 years down the road. And if you're not able to build a winner in 4 years in the NFL, you got bigger problems. This isn't baseball where it takes 7 years. This isn't the NBA or the NHL where it takes a little bit of time to build a winner. This is the NFL. Look at the Eagles. The Eagles just made the Super Bowl after not even making the playoffs the year before. And there's no reason. I'm not saying the Bears should be a Super Bowl contender this year. What I'm saying is it doesn't take long in the NFL to build a contending team. It doesn't take years upon years upon years. So this notion that they've got to reset the quarterback clock is ludicrous. They've got 4 years of control on Justin Fields. The last argument that you're kind of hearing is Mike Tannenbaum, who I heard a couple of times. And let's keep in mind that Tannenbaum is the guy that decided to draft Mark Sanchez for the Jets. So keep all that with a grain of salt. He's going to get killed. This style of play is not sustainable. He's not as big as Jalen Hurts. First of all, he's bigger than Jalen Hurts. He's 2 inches and 20 pounds heavier than Jalen Hurts. So stop with that right there. Finally, on this, yes, he did a ton of running. He did a ton of running this season. Nearly set the record for most rushing yards by a quarterback in a single season. He doesn't want to play that way. When he was asked multiple times during Super Bowl week on Radio Row, he brought up that he'd prefer to not have to do those things. He didn't know he could do those things until this season. He'd never had to before. He's learning things about himself as a player. I mean, if that doesn't excite you right there, the fact that this is the most exciting player we've seen since Devin Hester play at Soldier Field, and he hasn't hit the apex yet, and you want to trade him, that just blows my mind. But with regards to the running, he has even admitted, I'd prefer to not run that often. I want to stay in the pocket and throw. A lot of what happened last season was they had no one to throw to and no one to block for him. He had nothing around him. The only play that they had, the only option he had far too often was to bail out of the pocket and go make magic happen. But he even freely admits that he doesn't want to have to use his legs that often. He wants to develop as a passer and have his arm be his primary weapon, not his legs. So, I know there was a long rant. Thank you for getting through that with me. In short, the Bears are not trading Justin Fields. If you're interested in a trade with the Bears, I know the number 1 overall pick is usually used for quarterbacks, is usually reserved for quarterbacks. The phone lines are open for Ryan Poles. Call him up, make a deal, and take it from there. And then a quarterback will go number 1, whether it be the Texans or the Colts or the Raiders or who knows, maybe the Saints figure out. I don't know what the Saints would have to offer to get the number 1 overall pick. That would be Arthur, see if you can work on that one. Arthur's the host of our New Orleans show, the Bayou Bulletin, on Sunday mornings. Arthur, if you can come up with a trade package to get the number 1 overall pick, I would be very interested in hearing it. But, or the Panthers or the Falcons, somebody. There are teams there that could move up and make things very interesting for this offseason. But that's enough. That's enough on the Bears for now. I want to move next to the Bulls, and we're going to do the show a little bit differently. Normally, I'd be taking a break right about now. With as many teams as we're going to get through tonight, I'm going to just do one break right in the middle, and so we can kind of keep moving a little bit. Next up, I want to talk about the Bulls a little bit. Have to do 2 linemen of Michael Thomas in the 29th pick. That's a start. A start. Give me some names on those linemen, Arthur. Let's keep working this. Let's keep workshopping this. And yeah, I think there would have to be a king's ransom, depending on who's trading for it. It could be quite large. So now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Bulls. We talked a couple weeks ago, heading into the NBA trade deadline, that the Bulls didn't have assets to go buy, and the team as it was constructed wasn't doing well, wasn't working well. Could they conceivably, that standing pat didn't make sense to do? And so what seemed to make the most sense, as painful as it was, would be to look to sell. You see if you get something for Nikola Vucevic, who's coming out of contract, or see if you can get anybody interested in DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine. Obviously, you wouldn't be selling at top dollar there, but he's still worth something to somebody. Well, A.K. Arturas Karnisovas, the Bulls' president of basketball operations, chose to stand pat, which arguably was the worst choice he could make. And the Bulls responded by failing to win a game before the All-Star break. They're currently on a 6-game losing streak. They now are set to restart on Friday, but they find themselves in 11th place in the Eastern Conference overall. They would not even be in the play-in tournament at this point. If the season were over now, they would be done. They would be done. Stick a fork in them. To that end, a lot of talk was coming up that Russell Westbrook, who had ties to Billy Donovan, well, he'd been traded and he was almost certainly going to be released by the Jazz. Would the Bulls be interested in buying him out and bringing him in? Westbrook had some great success with Billy Donovan in Oklahoma City. I mean, he was a triple-double a night. could this be somebody that the Bulls would like? And the Bulls seemingly showed some interest as well. Well, Russell Westbrook made his decision earlier today. According to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, he's going to the Clippers, another organization that he already had ties with and had played with a little bit. So he's going back to Los Angeles. Honestly, I'm glad. I'm honestly very glad for that. To me, Russell Westbrook was not a fit for the Bulls. You look at the way the Bulls play right now, both Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, they kind of take turns on who gets to hog the ball. And they're very ball dominant. And neither one of them make very many threes. DeMar doesn't shoot any threes at all. Zach will shoot some, but he doesn't make very many. Russell Westbrook shoots a lot of threes, but doesn't make very many of them. He will also hog the ball. So, and also the Bulls need help defensively overall. Their defensive efficiency numbers are actually good, but overall you look at them and they could use some help in the defensive front court. You know, Nikola Vucevic isn't giving you much defensively. DeMar DeRozan's not giving you very much defensively. Zach LaVine's not giving you much defensively. Io is trying his heart out. Patrick Williams is trying his heart out defensively, but the Bulls could use some help. Alex Caruso can only do so much, and you're not getting Lonzo Ball back anytime soon. Russell Westbrook doesn't give you very much on the defensive end either. So I wasn't a huge fan of the idea of a Russell Westbrook signing in Chicago. So I was not upset to see that Westbrook signed with the Clippers. Best of luck to you, sir. Good luck out there. The Bulls instead signed Patrick Beverley, Chicago native, 34-year-old. He's going to finish out the season with the Bulls. 45 games with the Lakers this season. He started all 45 of those games with Los Angeles. Okay numbers. 6.5 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2.5 assists. All right. Decent from range, 35% from 3. And since December, he's shooting almost 40% from 3 since December 3rd. Now, he doesn't take very many threes. He only takes about 2 or 3 a game. So you'd like for him to take a couple more. You'd probably ideally like 4 or 5 a game from him if you can get that. So I'm not thrilled with the signing. He is a prior winner, 3-time all defensive NBA player. He hasn't gotten that for a few years. Those days are probably behind him, but he still at least knows how to play defense. There's been some off-court problems with him. Shoved a teammate in the back earlier this season, which earned him a suspension. He grabbed a camera off of a cameraman to try to show a ref a foul during a game. He's been a colorful character, to say the least. I like this move better than signing Russell Westbrook. I don't know that it's going to be enough of a difference for the Bulls. They might very well make the play-in tournament. They might very well finish somewhere between 7 and 10. I don't know that it's enough to actually make a difference for this team to go anywhere. Yeah, Taryn commenting that the Russell Westbrook experiment is going to be interesting for the Clippers. I'm glad it's the Clippers and not the Bulls. I'll put it that bad. Yeah, and Taryn commenting, Beverly isn't that great. Hopefully the Bulls can bring out his potential. He's 34 years old. I don't know how much more potential at that point there is to pull out. You are what you are at that point. The Bulls clearly miss Lonzo Ball. That's the long and the short of it. They miss having Lonzo Ball out there on the court. We've talked about that before. They're not getting him back. It's time to move on. It's time to move on from that. And hopefully this is at least a sign that Acme, Karnisovitz, and Mark Eversley, the general manager, are recognizing that they need to move on and try to build this team a different way. All right, we are going to take our one and only break of the night tonight, and then on the other side, we got a bunch more teams to get through. Spring training is upon us. Pitchers and catchers reported last week. We had position players were due today for the Cubs and the Sox, so we got to talk that. We've got a Blackhawks legend that has probably played his final game with the team. We got to touch on that. And then we got a little bit of college hoops to talk about too before we get out of here. So lots to do. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
The Spanish Top Flight is here on Wellington Sports Radio. From past champions like Barcelona and Atletico Madrid to current champions Real Madrid and every team in between trying to fight for Champions League glory and trying to fight against relegation. It's La Liga right here on Wellington Sports Radio.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of thunderous spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back on in, sports fans, to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. All right, we got 27 minutes left to go here. We got lots to get through. Baseball season, it's officially upon us. Spring training. The pitchers and catchers have reported for both sides of town. Position players reported earlier today, so things are ready to go. Unfortunately, the biggest story in baseball in town right now has nothing to do with baseball. It has to do with the White Sox signing pitcher Mike Clevenger, who unfortunately then is under investigation by Major League Baseball because he apparently choked his girlfriend and their child. What a charmer, right? At the time, I liked the signing. Goes, oh, okay. From a baseball perspective, he's somebody that can fill in the middle, the end of the rotation. This can help out the Sox. Then you find out that, what he's under investigation for. How on earth did the White Sox not know this? They should have known that, and they're keeping him around because to cut him would mean they'd have to forfeit the $12 million that they owe him. Fun. Then pitchers and catchers report, and he's there and has to do a press conference where he doubled down on the idea that he is completely innocent of all charges, he did nothing wrong, and that the investigation is all a giant witch hunt. Okay, you say so. God, what it doesn't feel like it was this long ago that the White Sox were supposed to be this beacon of hope, that they were supposed to be the team that was getting ready to go on the championship run, and instead we're left with this mess. Taryn, actually, he was buddies with Trevor Bauer. It was Trevor Bauer who kind of helped out him to Major League Baseball that, hey, this guy's not good. So, he's not a good dude. But he's still with the team and will be with the team until Major League Baseball finishes its investigation. I'm sure that Major League Baseball will do just as quickly as they do, rule changes, things like implementing instant replay and things like and making sure that the game is growing and things like that. Yeah, in other words, I'm not very hopeful for this at all. And in the meantime, he's just going to be out there. I kind of, at this point, I do kind of hope that Clevenger is out there a little bit for the Sox so that the Sox fans that do show up can just boo the snot out of the guy, just like actively cheer against him. I'd be fine with that. And in case you're listening and going, but he's got, he's innocent until proven guilty. Okay, this isn't a court of law. Let's save that for when he's actually in front of the jury. For right now, there's enough smoke to constitute that there's enough fire that you don't want him on your team. Let him go play for somebody else. Not this team. Let's figure that out. And unfortunately, that's the biggest story in baseball right now. Is in Chicago anyway, as pitchers and catchers are reporting. On the Cubs side, I mean, I guess you had that Wilson Contreras told went on the record that the last time he got offered a contract from the Cubs was 5 years ago. So the Cubs never had any intention of re-signing him, unfortunately. I hope he does well down in St. Louis. Well, to be fair, Taryn, the investigation is open. The investigation is still open with Major League Baseball. Police reports have been filed against him, so there is an active investigation going on against Clevenger. We will... Mike, basically that's actually exactly his alibi at this point, is just that his girlfriend is lying. That's his accusation. That's his alibi, is that she's wrong. And that's the further it's gone. So, yeah, take that for what it is. Such fun. But, unfortunately, at the very start of spring training here, the White Sox have been the most underwhelming team in Chicago for several years now, unfortunately. It really stinks just from a baseball perspective. They seemed to be going in such a great direction as an organization. They made the weird playoffs in 2020. Got all the way to the final game of that series against Oakland, when their legs kind of came out from under them. But you thought, okay, they're in the right direction. They've got a great young team. I mean, it felt like the White Sox were that the 2020 White Sox were the 2015 Cubs. That was the trajectory they were on. Then you've had the Tony La Russa thing. That was horrible, for the last 2 years, just from a baseball perspective. And then you also have general manager Rick Hahn just continually not addressing the problems on the roster. They finally re-signed Elvis Andrus today to a 1-year deal to play second base. He's a shortstop by nature. We'll see what he does, how well he does at second base. I mean, it's a fine signing, but second base has been a hole on this roster for 3 years now, and this is the best solution you've come up with, is to slap a Band-Aid on it at almost the last minute. Spring training has officially opened, and you're just now finally coming up with a solution for it. You've got a new manager, Pedro Grifol, that sounds like a great move and a great hire, and now the first thing he has to deal with is this Clevenger situation. Fun. It's a weird time to be a baseball fan in Chicago. And on the north side, okay, the Cubs have just allocated $300 million to players over the next several years. So there is some budding optimism there. But nobody really knows where it's going to be going. They had a great end to the season post All-Star break. Their starting rotation was quietly one of the top rotations in all of baseball last year. And they've announced their intentions to try and build differently this year in baseball, that this go around, they do want to emphasize more the pitching, less the hitting. Under Epstein, the thinking was you grow the bats and buy the arms. It feels like they're going to reverse that this go around, that it's going to be let's grow the arms and buy the bats, which is harder to do, but also kind of makes sense looking at the market in baseball, that you have hitters make it to the free agent market and sit there for a very long time because the teams have all wink, wink, nudge, nudge, nod, nod, decided that they don't want to pay anybody because, oh my God, then we don't have money in our pockets. Have I mentioned that baseball desperately needs a salary cap so that it has a salary floor? I'm pretty sure I brought that up like for 3 months in a row last year. Every episode for 3 months leading into the baseball season last year. So, somebody go back and check me on that. But you have the baseball owners basically every year deciding that they don't like to pay hitters. So there is ample opportunity to find hitters every year in free agency. So I can understand where they're coming from. But at this point in their development, it's totally speculative on how good they'll be. And you look at the projections on both sides of town. Neither side of town is projected to be any good. The White Sox are projected to win around 79 games. The Cubs are around 77-ish or so. So while there is some optimism around the Cubs, Carlos Dansby, Seiya Suzuki being healthy again, Nico Horner moving over to second base, some things like that. While there are some things there, it's so speculative that it's hard to really, yes, this is going to be the reason to get excited for the Cubs this year. And there's no reason to get excited for this. None. White Sox fans, by their general temperament anyway, are always kind of ready to kick the can in on the team already. They're beyond that point at this point. That organization has used up all of its goodwill, and the season hasn't even come close to starting yet. So it's a strange start to the spring. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens as the calendar turns over to March and we get into the routine of spring training and they actually get into get into games a little bit. So things to keep an eye on there in the baseball world, but it's just a strange start to spring training. I'm less excited on the Cubs. I brought this up on Twitter a little bit. Until the Cubs showed me that they actually care enough to re-sign one of their stars, it's very hard to get excited for any of these kids that they draft because they just, whether it was Bryant or Baez or Contreras or any of these guys, it's hard for me to get excited. Oh, Nico Horner and Ian Happ. This could be. Oh, they could be. No, they're not gonna re-sign him. They're just gonna let him go. They're gonna go through arbitration with him, and then they're gonna let him go because that's apparently what they're gonna do. So little frustrating as we get ready for the baseball season. But we'll keep an eye on all that during the spring. Hopefully we'll have some better stuff to report. Hopefully we'll be reporting here in the next week or two that Clevenger's been sacked, that they've just tossed him out of the team and thrown him to the wolves with the MLB investigation and said we'll figure out the $12 million later. Just go away. Hopefully that, I would love to be talking about that next week. Believe me, I've already got an idea for next week. I've already got what next week's episode is going to be, but I'd love to cut in with that instead. I'd love for that to be my story. All right. We're going to move from that to hockey. For those of you who are regular listeners, you know that Zach Puplis and I, on Tuesday nights, we do the Neutral Zone here on IE Sports Radio. 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. We talk all things hockey. This has been a terrible year for the Blackhawks, and it's going to continue to be a terrible year. Nothing's going to change that. But it looks like we've gotten some clarity on Taves and Kane. Jonathan Taves is going to be a Blackhawk for the rest of this season. We know that. We got clarity on that. Unfortunately, the reason that they're not going to trade him is because he's not healthy enough to be traded at this point. Taves hasn't played for about a month at this point. He announced yesterday on a team-released statement that he has been dealing with the effects of long-term COVID, that they've gone back and realized that he actually caught COVID very early, like before it was a global pandemic, kind of early. We're talking late January of 2020 or early February of 2020. He caught COVID, and then unfortunately, as also came out that he has an immune disorder where his body just doesn't fight diseases like it's supposed to. So even though he's a young Kale. Oh, you're trying to push my buttons there, buddy. We'll have a discussion. We'll have a discussion on that. Kale Henderson jumped into the chat real quick. Still think Fields is being traded before draft night. We'll have a discussion there. Go back and catch the first 6 minutes of the show. I know you were listening. Go back and check the first 6 minutes of the show there if you missed that, of my thoughts on that. But Taves, unfortunately, even though he is young and seemingly healthy, his body's immune system, and he learned this last year, he was just learning this last year, that he doesn't fight off disease as well as a regular 34-year-old world-class athlete. So unfortunately, he's been dealing with the effects of long COVID now. And so he hasn't played for the last 3.5 weeks. As a result, he's not being traded. He will be a Blackhawk for the rest of this season, and then his contract will close out, and we'll see where he goes from there. If he stays in Chicago or if he goes elsewhere, we'll see what the market produces for him. We'll see how many more games he actually plays. Then we get to Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, a week ago, talked about how he was disappointed that the Rangers made a trade for Vladimir Tarasenko. The Rangers were one of the teams on Kane's list. Remember that Kane has a no-trade clause in his agreement, so he has to approve any move that would take him off the team. He understands the reality of the situation at this point. He's looking to get traded. The Rangers were one of the teams that he was willing to get traded to, in large part because Artemi Panarin's over there. Artemi Panarin was one of his best line mates ever in Chicago when they were together for those few seasons. The two of them, they got together great on the ice. Both of them just fed off of each other so well, and they got together great off the ice too. They were good teammates for each other. They were good pals, good friends. So when the Rangers decided they didn't want to wait for Patrick Kane and the Blackhawks, they went to the Blues and got Vladimir Tarasenko instead. Great move for the Rangers, not so great a move for Patrick Kane. And so then it was, okay, well, on to the next team. The Toronto Maple Leafs kept pounding the door, trying to make it be known, we want Patrick Kane, we want Patrick Kane, we want Patrick Kane, and they were trying to project rumors that, hey, he's coming here, he's coming here, he's coming here. Kane said, yeah, don't believe everything you hear. I have no interest in playing for Toronto. No offense. Well, the Blackhawks announced yesterday, Cale Davidson, their general manager, announced they have a home game tomorrow against Vegas, the Golden Knights. Cale, I'm sure, will have some thoughts on that game tomorrow night during Sin City Sports. They're hosting the Golden Knights tomorrow at home before they go on the road for a little bit of a trip. The Blackhawks will be will be on the road for the rest of this week and for the early part of next week. They play their next 4 games on the road. And then the trade deadline is Friday, March 3rd. So next week, Friday. So tomorrow is their last home game before the trade deadline. Davidson announced that Patrick Kane will be a scratch in that game tomorrow for trade-related reasons. This is happening. We've known that it was going to happen. We've known that this was coming. It's here. It stinks. It really, really stinks. Patrick Kane has been. Now, admittedly, I got into the Hawks during the Taves, Kane, Keith rise to greatness. The beginnings of that run. 15, my gosh, almost 15 years ago. Holy cow, where did the time go? Geez, I'm old. Guys, how did I get old? How did that happen? It wasn't supposed to. I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Kane was one of the guys that helped get me into hockey. And he was an American-born player. He was young. I mean, he's my age. He's, I think, a year younger than me. That he's just so much fun to watch fly around the ice. And, of course, all the stick handles and the spinoramas and all the moves that he would do. It was fun to what he had. It was an infectious energy. Yeah, he doesn't play a lick of defense. He's completely useless on the defensive side of the ice. But man, he way more than makes up for it on the offensive side. But we're not going to have him. My mom chiming in. You can't be old because I'm not old. All right, I'll take it. I'm not old. I'll take it. I've been watching hockey for 15 years now. I can't believe that. Kane got to go out the right way, though. The Hawks hosted the Maple Leafs last night, and Kane put on a show for everybody. His 9th career hat trick. He got 3 goals in basically the first 30 minutes of the game. He decided it was showtime. And the crowd roared with everyone because everybody knew what was coming. That last night was probably the last time that we'll get to see Patrick Kane in a Blackhawk sweater. I'll have more when it actually happens. It'll probably happen tomorrow while I'm doing the show with Zach, because, of course, that's how that works. Kale, I would not mind in the slightest if he wound up just going from the Blackhawks locker room over to the Vegas locker room and do it like a baseball where they just shuttle him over there and then he puts on the sweater and out the door he goes. I wouldn't mind that in the slightest, actually. I think Vegas could be a great spot for him. I don't know how to make the money work. I'm not good enough to figure out how to make the money work that way. But we've known it's coming, but the day is here, and it's hard. It's really hard, and it's going to be hard. when we find out for sure that it's happening. All right, we made it all the way through the pros. I got a couple of quick college basketball notes. Vegas would be a terrible spot for Kale. Vegas would be a terrible spot for Justin Fields. Now you are just trolling me. Kick a man while he's down while you're at it. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. I'm going to have to put a moratorium on promoting Sin City Sports on here for a minute, I think. I have to take a week. Darn it, that drop is too good, though, Kale. Darn it, Kale, you made too good of a drop. I like using that one. Anyway, all right. We have a couple of college notes real quick before we get out of here, and then we turn things over to Taryn Rodriguez. If for no other reason, he's got a guest coming up on his show, so we definitely want to make sure we got to get out of here on time for Taryn. Northwestern. Oh, my goodness. When did Northwestern get to be good at basketball? The Northwestern Wildcats, the Big Ten as a whole, has been a strange conference this year. It's been weird. Purdue has been up, and then all of a sudden they've gone on a losing streak, and Northwestern has been plowing through the state of Indiana. Beat Purdue, beat Indiana, then beat Iowa. It's just crazy right now. Now they're ranked. They're 21st, and you could make an argument that might be a little low. Some have. I know Davidson from Fast Break said, no, that's a good spot for him. Congratulations to the Wildcats. And then I spoke earlier today with our friend of the program, Matt Garner. We'll hopefully have him on to do some bracketology with us here in a few weeks. We'll see if my personal schedule allows for that to happen. He's got Northwestern right now as a 6 seed. So they would be in the tournament for just the second time ever. Northwestern, right now, as long as they don't fall flat on their face, they're a 6 seed. For Illinois fans, he's got Illinois in there too. They'd be an 8 seed right now. So there's going to be some college hoops to be paying attention to in the tournament from Illinois. No DePaul yet. That probably, that'll be amazing if that ever happens. But it looks like the Wildcats, provided they don't fall flat on their faces and trip over themselves here in the next month, they should be making the tournament just the second time ever. Coach Chris Collins has got to be proud of the work he's doing there. We made it! Holy cow, what a show! I don't know that I should drink caffeine during shows anymore. That was a little wild. That was a little crazy. But we made it. We got through. We talked Bears. We talked Bulls. We talked Blackhawks. We talked White Sox. We talked Cubs. We even got into the college ranks. Where else is there to go? What if I told you the NFL shouldn't do a draft? What if I told you that they should completely do away with the NFL draft? We will discuss that next week. The crazy argument, I know, especially now that the Bears have the number 1 overall pick. I'm not advocating for it this year. But we'll have that discussion next week and see what we think. In the meantime, thank you to Larry B. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised, Emlos Great, Key to the Gate, and Anonymous. Head over to our website, iesportsradio.com. You can follow along with the station and all the shows right there. Thank you to station manager Larry B. Thank you to Cale Henderson, Taryn Rodriguez, Arthur Parsons, all for hanging out with us in the chat room here tonight. Coming right up as soon as I push the button to get off here, Taryn Rodriguez is coming up next with Set Point. Going to be talking all things volleyball. He's got a guest lined up for tonight. The head coach of Penn State's volleyball program is coming up later on. And then next week, he's got some Chicago stuff to talk. We will see you all next week. Until then.